بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Chapter 13, the author spoke on the limitless, countless ways of doing good. Bab Bayan Kathrati Turuk al Khair. There's so many ways of achieving good and accomplishing good. But don't think that you have to kill yourself and go to the extreme. Don't think that you have to make things for yourself unnecessarily difficult and punish and torture yourself unnecessarily just to get to those abundant ways of good, or in treading those abundant ways of good to reach your destination. Don't think that. So that's what chapter 14 is about. When he says babun, or he says babul iqtisadi fi ta'ah, it's for a person to be balanced and for a person to be moderate with regards to ta'ah, with regards to obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not to be extreme, not to go past the boundaries, with two main meanings which are very important. The first is not to do that which is legislated, that which is from the deen too much, too hard and too difficult, pressing it too much. And secondly, doing an act of worship that's innovated, that's made up, and then pushing it to the max with the purpose of getting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very dangerous. And the author, rahimahullah, has other chapters in which he speaks about bid'ah and sticking to the sunnah and the etiquettes of the sunnah. What's important is that's what's meant by being moderate and balanced. Being moderate and being balanced and obeying Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't mean that it conforms to the desires and it conforms to the opinions and the tastes of the people today, in which those who wear hijab are considered to be extreme, and men who have a beard or full beard are extreme. And if you pray 5 times a day, then you're extreme. And if you have the aqidah of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, which is al-wala wal-bara, loving and hating for Allah's sake, love for the monotheists and hatred for the disbelievers and the polytheists, then you're extreme. Or anything, let alone to the other issues of jihad, and the list goes forward. What's important is to believe what's in the kitab and the sunnah in a proper way is not extreme. To make up innovations, to make up practices, to replace the sharia with culture, and then to stick to it fanatically, that's extreme. That's a different story. So once more, being extreme either means to take that which is from the deen and do it too much of it, too hard, without a balance. Or taking something that's not from the religion and making up your own practices, which clearly leads to that which is known as al-bid'ah. Khayran, inshallah, that's in brief. The author says, قال الله تعالى طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. Allah tells us, طه. These 2 letters, what do they mean? What do they symbolize? Only Allah truly knows, subhanahu wa ta'ala. We haven't sent down the Quran upon you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for you to be miserable and wretched. That's not why we sent the Quran, for you to suffer. This is a tremendous Quranic verse, and the entire Quran is tremendous. This is a tremendous lesson to learn, is that holding fast to Islam, which is the Quran, holding fast to the Sunnah, which is implementing the teachings of the Quran, following the deen is not meant to be a means of suffering. It doesn't mean that there's no hardship and that there's no sacrifice that has to be made. It doesn't mean that a person doesn't have to challenge his nafs. It doesn't mean that. But it isn't a means of total and absolute suffering in which a person is just miserable. And any time that is found, then something is clearly wrong with the act. Something is clearly wrong with the practice. Something is wrong with the person, but not the actual teaching. The teaching is never a means of misery. And that's an entire lecture in itself. وقال تعالى يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر. Allah tells in Surah Al-Baqarah that Allah wants for you good. He wants for you ease, yusr. And He doesn't want for you usr, hardship and difficulty. That's not what Allah wants. This is a principle that the scholars of Islam expound upon, especially the fuqaha and the people of usul, with regards to the maximum of the deen, the qawaid, the concept of what is a hardship upon a person when a ruling the application of the ruling is understood in the light of difficulty, hardship, understood in light of ease and facilitation. So Islam is never ever meant to be a religion of hardship. So this shows us is that the person is not to make a hardship upon himself in the name of Islam, in the name of ta'ah. That's the highlighting point from those two ayah. Then the author goes on to quote the hadith of the chapter by saying, وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم دخل عليها وعندها امرأة قال من هذه؟ قالت هذه فلانة تذكر من صلاتها قال مه عليكم بما تطيقون فوالله لا يمل الله حتى تملوا وكان أحب الدين إليه ما داوم صاحبه عليه متفق عليه. It's narrated by Aisha رضي الله تعالى عنها. One day there was a woman, and the Prophet ﷺ, he entered upon Aisha, and there was a woman there. And he said, "Who's this? Who's this?" She said, "This is Fulana, such and such a woman." And talked about her piety and her righteousness and how much prayer she makes and offers. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Meh, stop, no. Do the deeds that you have the ability to perform. Perform the actions that you can do consistently. Do that which is easy and simple. Don't make a hardship upon yourselves, because Allah does not become exhausted and tired until you become exhausted and tired, until you give up. Allah doesn't quit until you quit. Allah doesn't give up until you give up. And the most fond deen, the most beloved practice of the religion to Allah Azza wa Jal is that which a person does consistently. Is that which a person does ala dawam, all of the time. And they can consistently do it on a steady, balanced pace. This hadith is collected by al-Bukhari and collected by Imam Muslim. Many fawaid in this hadith, many rulings in this hadith, and many issues in this hadith. The main one is that the Prophet ﷺ forbade the Sahaba, the best of the best, from going too hard and doing too much and making things a hardship and a difficulty in which it takes a person out of the realm of consistency, or it takes a person out of the realm of perfecting and finishing their acts thoroughly because they're tired, because they're exhausted, because they're straining and they're stretching their limited human resources. So that's the main lesson from this hadith. The main lesson from this hadith. Khairan, inshallah. Moving forward, the Prophet ﷺ, he says in the next hadith, وعن ابي مسعود رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال هلك المتنطعون قال ثلاثا رواه مسلم. He says هلك المتنطعون. Ibn Mas'ud narrates that the Prophet says al-mutanatti'un, the people who are too extreme, too harsh, too severe, they go too deep. He says they will be destroyed and they will be ruined. And he said this 3 times, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hadith is collected by Imam Muslim, and it proves what the previous narration of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha has proven: the obligation of being balanced, of being moderate, not going extreme, not transgressing the boundaries. However, once more, we must make the disclaimer: this does not mean that a person does not perform the ibadah. This doesn't mean that a person doesn't make jihadun nafs. This doesn't mean that a person just gives in to his sleepiness or drowsy state, and a person just sits and relaxes and eats and doesn't challenge himself, and a person doesn't have to sweat, and a person doesn't have to put forth effort. It does not mean that. Nor does it mean being religious is extreme and that balance is found in secular lifestyle. It does not mean that. And the hadith clearly shows us the severe danger of being extreme and going overboard. The next narration of the chapter, the Prophet ﷺ says, is narrated by Abu Hurairah. Now he says, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الدين يسر ولن يشاد الدين أحد إلا غلبه فسددوا وقاربوا وأبشروا واستعينوا بالغدوة والروحة والشيء من الدلجة. رواه البخاري. وفي رواية له سددوا وقاربوا واغدوا وروحوا وشيء من الدلجة القسط تبلغوا. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, hadith narrated by Abu Hurairah, the Prophet ﷺ says, and verily the religion is ease, simplicity, And anyone who tries to wrestle the religion and fight with it and battle it will be thrown and tossed. The religion will overpower him. The religion will take over him. It's too much. You don't have the ability to do every single thing. You try to do it all, you will lose. You can't win the arm wrestling match with the deen. It's too much. It's too strong. وَلَنْ يُشَادَّ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ. You try to fight with the deen will overcome you. So therefore, the Prophet, he says, فَسَدِّدُوا وَقَارِبُوا وَأَبْشِرُوا. He says, so aim precisely. وَقَارِبُوا. Come as close to the target as you possibly can. وَأَبْشِرُوا. And have glad tidings if you fall short, if you have a mistake or an error, with the necessary intention and the necessary efforts. The Prophet ﷺ, he then says, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالْغَدْوَةِ وَالرَّوْحَةِ وَالشَّيْءٍ مِنَ الدُّلْجَةِ. And seek the help in the following acts, the following practices, and in the following times. Says by traveling before noon, afternoon, and also traveling at night. I.e., take a break, take a rest. Be a smart and wise traveler. Know when to move, when to operate. Know when to maneuver and how to maneuver. That is, bid'nillahi ta'ala, the way of success. This hadith is collected by Imam al-Bukhari. Another version says, similar to the previous version, but then it says, al-qasta tablughu. Be moderate, you will win. You will reach your destination. Just like we say in our wisdoms, slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. The tortoise versus the hare. The hare is fast, agile, strong, quick, swift, but its energy will wane. It will run out of steam. It will give up. It will collapse. The tortoise is slow, cumbersome, reminiscent of molasses, moving and barely having any type of fluidity. It doesn't move fast. It's not swift. It doesn't dash. But it's steady. It's strong. And it wins in the end. The last narration of the chapter, the Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, or before that, speaking about the interpretation of hadith, he says, وَمَعْنَاهُ اسْتَعِينُوا عَلَى طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ بِالْأَعْمَالِ فِي وَقْتِ نَشَاطِكُمْ وفراغ قلوبكم بحيث تستلذون العبادة ولا تسأمون وتبلغون مقصودكم كما أن المسافر الحاذق يسير في هذه الأوقات ويستريح هو ودابته في غيرها فيصل المقصود بغير تعب والله أعلم. He says that the Prophet is telling us to use these tools and these techniques to obey Allah Azza wa Jal when we have energy and stamina, when we have vigor, when our hearts are focused and not preoccupied and busy, whereas we find the sweetness of ibadah, the beautiful taste of worship, and not to become exhausted and bored. And then, bid'nillahi ta'ala, you'll reach your goal and your objective. Just like a skilled traveler, a wise traveler, a world-class, first-class traveler, he knows when to move, he knows when to travel, and he knows when to relax, when to give his camel or horse a break, water. He knows when to be in the shade. It's too hot to move right now. There's no point in driving from one city to the next. There's nothing but traffic on the road. We're going to get stuck on the turnpike. There's no point in going to one place to another right now. Just wait. But I have to get there. I'm in a rush. If you leave right now from New York City to Philadelphia, you're going to sit in traffic for 4 hours before you even get to New Jersey. You're going to be stuck. So just wait an hour or two and then go when there's no traffic. That's what Nawawi is telling us. He says you'll reach your destination without being exhausted and frustrated. And Allah knows best, Nawawi says. The last narration of the chapter, وعن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال بينما النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يخطب إذا هو برجل قائب فسأل عنه فقالوا أبو إسرائيل نذر أن يقوم في الشمس ولا يقعد ولا يستظل ولا يتكلم ويصوم فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مروه فليتكلم وليستظل وليقعد وليتم صومه رواه البخاري. Narrated Ibn Abbas رضي الله عنهما, the Messenger of Allah was giving a sermon one day, and one day there was a man who was standing up, or all of a sudden there was a man who was standing up. Who is this man? The Prophet ﷺ asked the people. Abu Israel. He made a vow to stand in the sun not to sit down, not to seek any shade, not to speak and to fast. The companions replied. The Prophet ﷺ finally said, tell this man to speak, command him to talk, command him to seek shade, command him to sit down, and command him to finish his fast. And this hadith is collected by Imam al-Bukhari. The highlighting point from the hadith is very clear, very plain, and very lucid. It shows us the prohibition of going extreme, the prohibition of being unbalanced, the prohibition of being or having a lack of moderateness, to be moderate in our ibadah. And also shows us there's nothing wrong with performing extra ibadah. The Prophet said, let him fast. There's nothing wrong with fasting. But you standing in the sun, saying that you're not going to talk, don't do that. So this is a very important concept that many Muslims get wrong. They can't get. And that is, they think that if something has an original basis to it, then the rest of the act or the practice is okay. That's totally made up and innovated. That's totally introduced. Or the exact opposite. If there's a bid'ah that has some sunnah to it, a foundation to it, practice or the philosophy or the concept or the mission statement of this group, then every single thing else is wrong and incorrect. And that's also wrong. So, when it comes to dhikr, is dhikr from the sunnah? Without question. Is bid'ah from the sunnah of dhikr? No. To do what you want to do and to say this and to make this up, that's all wrong. But just because you avoid the bid'ah of the dhikr doesn't mean that you avoid the dhikr. Just because this group has went extreme in certain aspects of jihad fi sabilillah and fighting and killing and things like this, kuffar, the Muslim lands, defending the honor and the property of the Muslims, that doesn't mean that you totally get away with the concept of jihad fi sabilillah because of a person's extremism or because of a person's errors. This is a crucially critical point for us to understand. Just because people go extreme in issues and don't have the proper understanding of unity, it doesn't mean that we forsake the concept of unity. And that remains the truth. Unity is from the deen, dhikr is from the deen, jihad is from the deen. All these things are from the religion. So the Prophet said, fast, finish the fast, don't do the innovations. Do what's from the sunnah, leave off that which is not from the sunnah. Only Allah knows how important these words are. The hadith also teaches us the concern of the learned man for his disciples, and also shows us that acts of the sunnah, things from the sunnah, could be hidden to a person in a time of virtue. This man was in the time of the Prophet, ﷺ, and he did these acts that weren't correct. And the Prophet ﷺ, he forbade the evil and he enjoined the good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.